Max was a handsome German shepherd with deep, expressive eyes that carried the sadness of a dog abandoned by his family. The shelter was loud, filled with echoes of barking dogs and rattling cages, making it difficult for any animal to feel at peace. Max had once belonged to a loving home, but after his family moved away, he found himself locked in a cramped kennel. Day after day, he watched as visitors passed him by, never stopping long enough to notice his wagging tail and hopeful eyes. Frustration began to grow within Max, and each day, his attempts to catch attention grew louder and more desperate. One morning, the shelter worker named Jake approached Max's cage with food, visibly annoyed at the dog's persistent barking. Max eagerly moved closer to Jake, expecting kindness or perhaps a comforting pat. Instead, Jake, overwhelmed by stress, snapped and slapped Max harshly across the face, causing the dog's head to recoil. A stunned silence filled the kennel as Max stood frozen, his eyes wide with disbelief and pain. For a moment, Max felt defeated, unsure if he would ever find love or trust humans again. But deep inside Max, something powerful began to stir, a quiet resolve he didn't fully understand yet. Jake slammed the kennel door shut, storming away, muttering angry words under his breath. Alone, Max lay in the corner of his cage, contemplating what had happened and wondering how he would ever escape this harsh place. Hours passed, and Max's stomach growled loudly, but he refused to touch the food left by Jake, associating it with pain. His thoughts wandered back to happier days with his former family, memories providing him both comfort and agony. As night fell, Max's sensitive ears picked up faint whimpers coming from a nearby cage, pulling him from his sadness. Curiously, he moved toward the cage bars, noticing a small, timid puppy named Daisy trembling in fear. Max felt a surge of compassion for the frightened puppy, recalling his own confusion upon first arriving at the shelter. He gently nudged his paw toward Daisy, comforting her with soft, reassuring gestures until she calmed down. This act of kindness awakened something extraordinary in Max, showing him a new purpose amidst his struggles. The following morning, the shelter buzzed with visitors looking for new pets, filling the air with hope and excitement. Max, despite his recent trauma, lifted his head high and wagged his tail bravely, determined not to lose hope again. He watched as families passed, hoping someone would finally stop by his cage, but most seemed drawn to smaller, younger dogs. Then, Max noticed a young girl named Emma quietly observing him from a distance, her eyes filled with gentle curiosity. Emma stepped closer, her mother following closely behind, sensing her daughter's immediate bond with the quiet, dignified dog. Emma knelt in front of Max's cage, extending a cautious hand toward him, her voice calm and soothing. Max carefully sniffed her fingers and felt a warm, comforting presence radiating from the young girl. Instantly, a connection sparked between them, as if fate had brought Emma to his cage at exactly the right time. Emma turned excitedly to her mother, pleading to adopt Max and give him the loving home he desperately needed. But as the shelter worker Jake approached, recognizing Max, he tried to steer Emma away, warning her that Max was aggressive. Emma, sensing Jake's hostility, bravely stood her ground, refusing to believe Max could be anything but gentle. Emma's mother also noticed the tension and questioned Jake's reluctance, sensing something was amiss. Reluctantly, Jake stepped aside, allowing Emma and her mother to spend more time with Max in the adoption room. Freed from his cage, Max showed his true, gentle nature, nuzzling Emma lovingly and wagging his tail joyfully. Emma's mother smiled warmly, seeing the genuine affection Max had for her daughter and feeling relieved. After careful consideration, they officially decided to adopt Max, promising him a forever home filled with love and care. Max's heart soared, knowing that his dark days at the shelter were finally behind him. As they walked toward the exit, Max cast one last glance at Jake, who stood silently, realizing the error of his judgment. Max forgave Jake, understanding that kindness and compassion were far stronger than anger and bitterness. Leaving the shelter behind, Max eagerly stepped forward into his new life, ready to embrace the love that awaited him. Max arrived at his new home, his heart racing with excitement and a touch of nervousness. The house felt welcoming, filled with warmth and the aroma of freshly baked cookies that lingered in the air. Emma guided him gently inside, speaking softly to reassure him that everything was okay. Max carefully explored each room, sniffing curiously at the furniture and wagging his tail cautiously. Emma's mother placed a soft, cozy bed for Max in the living room, alongside a bowl of fresh food and water. Tentatively, Max approached the bed, sniffing the soft material before settling down with a deep sigh of relief. Emma sat beside him, stroking his fur gently, her touch making Max feel safe and loved. As days passed, Max quickly adapted to his new life, becoming deeply attached to Emma and her family. Every morning, Emma took Max for long walks in the nearby park, where he eagerly chased birds and played fetch. The neighborhood children soon grew fond of Max, affectionately greeting him each day with smiles and pets. Despite his newfound happiness, Max never forgot Daisy, the timid puppy he had comforted at the shelter. Often he would pause, looking back in the direction of the shelter, quietly hoping Daisy would find a home too. Emma noticed Max's thoughtful moments and sensed he was remembering something important from his past. Curious, she asked the shelter workers about Max's history, hoping to understand her beloved dog's emotions better. Upon hearing about Daisy, Emma felt touched by Max's kindness and decided she had to do something to help. After discussing it with her mother, Emma convinced her to return to the shelter, determined to rescue Daisy as well. When they arrived at the shelter, Daisy's tiny figure instantly caught Emma's attention as she cowered in her cage. Daisy recognized Emma's gentle voice and cautiously wagged her tail, sensing a hopeful change approaching. Emma eagerly began the adoption paperwork, excited to reunite Daisy with her beloved friend Max. Filled with joy, Emma knew she was giving both Max and Daisy the happy endings they truly deserved. When Daisy arrived at her new home, she was nervous and shy, clinging closely to Emma's side. Max greeted her with gentle nudges and soft whines, remembering the fear in her eyes back at the shelter. Daisy slowly stepped inside, sniffing the unfamiliar surroundings while Max patiently guided her around. Emma gave her a small, cozy blanket and placed it beside Max's bed so she wouldn't feel alone. That night, Max curled around Daisy protectively, and for the first time in days, Daisy slept peacefully. Over the next few days, Daisy's tail began to wag more often, her steps growing lighter with each hour. Max shared his toys with her, showing her how to play and chase balls across the grassy backyard. Emma watched them both with pride, amazed at the bond growing between her two rescued friends. Daisy especially loved when Emma read books out loud, often curling up in her lap while Max lay at her feet. The house was now filled with laughter, barking, and the sound of paws padding through the halls. One afternoon, Emma invited her friends over to meet Max and Daisy, excited to share their stories. The children listened closely as Emma told them how Max had saved Daisy from fear and loneliness. Her story moved them, and many of them promised to ask their parents to adopt shelter animals too. Inspired, Emma and her mother started visiting the shelter once a week to volunteer and spread awareness. Max and Daisy always came along, greeting visitors and showing how beautiful rescue animals could be. People were amazed at how well-behaved Max was, never imagining he had once been labeled as aggressive. Jake, the shelter worker, began noticing the changes and slowly started treating the animals with more care. Watching Max and Daisy made him reflect on his actions and realize how wrong he had been. He approached Emma one day and quietly apologized for what he had done to Max. Emma accepted his apology, knowing that forgiveness, like love, could change even the coldest hearts. As the weeks passed, Max and Daisy settled fully into their new life, becoming local favorites in the neighborhood. Every morning, Emma walked them through the park, where people would wave and smile at the happy trio. Max carried himself with quiet pride, his posture strong and eyes bright with purpose. Daisy trotted beside him, no longer fearful, her tiny legs keeping up with surprising energy. Emma often paused to speak with others about adoption, sharing Max and Daisy's journey as proof of hope. A local reporter heard about the story and reached out, asking to feature them in a community news segment. Emma agreed, believing it would help more animals find homes and teach people about kindness. On filming day, Max and Daisy sat calmly as cameras rolled, their loyalty to Emma shining through every frame. The story aired that evening, touching thousands of viewers who were moved by the transformation of two abandoned dogs. Donations poured into the shelter afterward, along with a surge in adoptions and volunteer signups. The shelter upgraded its facilities, making the kennels more comfortable and the environment less stressful. Jake began taking animal care courses, determined to redeem himself and become someone dogs could trust. Max would visit often, not in fear or anger, but as a symbol of how love can rise from cruelty. Daisy, once terrified of cages, would now gently comfort new arrivals with her calm and warm presence. The shelter even created a mural in honor of Max and Daisy, calling them the guardians of second chances. Emma looked at the painting proudly, knowing her decision to adopt had created a ripple far bigger than she imagined. She continued working with shelters, helping other kids get involved in rescuing and caring for animals. Max and Daisy became part of school presentations, teaching children the values of empathy and responsibility. No one could believe that a single slap, once filled with pain, had led to such widespread healing and change. In their own quiet, tail-wagging way, Max and Daisy had rewritten their story and helped others write new ones too. One sunny afternoon, Emma took Max and Daisy to a pet fair hosted at the city park, filled with animals, music, and laughter. Booths lined the grassy field, offering treats, games, and information about animal adoption and care. Max stood tall beside Emma, calmly observing the crowd, while Daisy sniffed around with excited curiosity. Children rushed over to pet them, thrilled to meet the famous dogs from the news story. A kind man named Mr. Walters approached, a veterinarian who had seen their segment and wanted to help. He offered Max and Daisy free health checkups and vaccinations as a thank you for inspiring so many. Emma accepted gratefully, and Mr. Walters examined both dogs with gentle hands and a warm smile. He declared them in excellent health and praised Emma for taking such good care of them. He also asked if Emma would allow Max and Daisy to be therapy dogs at his clinic once a week. Emma was thrilled by the idea, knowing they could bring comfort to sick or nervous animals. The next week, Max and Daisy visited the clinic, where they calmly greeted each pet with patience and kindness. One frightened cat even curled up next to Max, instantly soothed by his steady presence. Word spread quickly, and the clinic saw an increase in visits, with animals responding better to treatment. Max and Daisy wore little blue vests that read, "Therapy Dog," and they wore them with pride. Their weekly visits became a highlight for both staff and pet owners, who loved seeing the gentle duo in action. Emma balanced school and volunteering, supported by her mother, who proudly watched her daughter grow into a leader. One day, Emma gave a speech at her school assembly about kindness, rescue, and how animals can change lives. She ended by saying, "Even when you feel broken, you can still help someone else feel whole." The room erupted in applause, and Max barked softly as if cheering her on. From that day forward, Emma, Max, and Daisy were known not just as a family, but as a team of everyday heroes. As months passed, the seasons changed, and with them came new adventures for Max, Daisy, and Emma. The once quiet house was now filled with joyful noise, paws scurrying, laughter echoing, and the occasional squeaky toy squeal. Max had grown more confident and protective, always watching over Daisy and Emma like a loyal guardian. Daisy remained playful and affectionate, her once fearful eyes now sparkling with energy and trust. Emma continued to volunteer regularly, and her mother even joined the cause, organizing weekend adoption events. Max and Daisy became the official mascots for the shelter, appearing on flyers and banners to inspire hopeful adopters. The shelter, once a place of gloom, was now vibrant, full of stories of healing and second chances. Jake, now fully reformed, treated each animal with care, knowing that love was always more powerful than control. He often shared Max's story with new staff, reminding them how easily fear can be mistaken for aggression. One afternoon, a woman arrived at the shelter, carrying a small, injured stray wrapped in a blanket. The dog was weak and trembling, his fur matted and eyes full of pain, just as Max had once been. Emma knelt beside him gently, whispering the same words she had spoken to Max the day they met. The dog slowly relaxed, sensing the love and safety he had long been without. Emma named him Buddy, and after some care and healing, he too found a place in their ever-growing family. Max welcomed Buddy with calm acceptance, and Daisy danced circles around their new friend with joy. Watching them together, Emma realized their home had become more than a house. It was a haven for healing hearts. Each dog had their own story, their own past, yet they all found common ground in love and trust. The community began referring to Emma's home as the Rescue House, a nickname that filled her with pride. What started as one act of compassion had now blossomed into a legacy of kindness reaching far beyond their walls. Max, once slapped and forgotten, had become the heart of something truly extraordinary, and it all began with a second chance. One chilly evening, as the first snowflakes of winter floated down, Emma sat by the fireplace with Max, Daisy, and Buddy curled around her. The warmth of the fire crackled gently, casting a soft glow on their content faces and the cozy room around them. Emma's mother brought in mugs of hot cocoa, and even the dogs were treated to special biscuits shaped like bones. Outside, the world was quiet and blanketed in white, but inside, Love filled every corner of the home. Emma looked at Max, his fur now slightly graying, and thought about how far he had come from that cold cage. She gently scratched behind his ears, whispering, "You changed everything, Max." Max gave a soft huff of acknowledgement and rested his head on her lap, eyes half closed in peace. Daisy curled beside him, nuzzling her best friend, while Buddy stretched out by their feet, his tail wagging lazily. Emma reached for her notebook and began writing down everything she had learned over the past year. Her words poured out easily, lessons about trust, patience, healing, and the power of unconditional love. She titled the journal The Max Effect, hoping one day it would help others understand the beauty of rescue. Emma dreamed of becoming a vet or opening her own rescue center where no animal would ever be mistreated. Her mother promised to support her every step of the way, proud of the strong, kind young woman her daughter had become. The next morning, Emma shared her dream at school, and her classmates eagerly volunteered to help. They started a rescue club, organizing supply drives and visiting shelters together to make a difference. Max, Daisy, and Buddy joined every meeting, always happy to be the center of attention and examples of hope. The club's efforts gained attention across the city, inspiring other schools to start similar programs. Emma's small act of kindness had turned into a citywide movement, all sparked by one broken dog who dared to love again. As another year came to a close, Emma knew this was just the beginning of a lifelong mission to protect animals. And Max, once forgotten behind a cage door, now slept peacefully knowing he had sparked a future filled with light. On the one-year anniversary of Max's adoption, Emma organized a special celebration at the shelter where it all began. The building was decorated with balloons, banners, and photos of rescued animals who had found loving homes. A large sign at the entrance read, "From Hurt to Hope," celebrating Max's journey. Families, volunteers, and adopters gathered, sharing stories of the animals they had rescued and the lives they had changed. Jake, now a changed man, gave a heartfelt speech about Max, admitting his past mistakes with visible emotion. He praised Max for teaching him that patience and love could reach even the most broken spirits. Emma stood proudly beside Max, holding his leash with one hand and Daisy's paw in the other. Buddy barked excitedly from behind the stage, wagging his tail at the growing crowd of supporters. Emma took the microphone and told the story of that day Max was slapped, how pain turned into purpose. Her voice cracked slightly, but she continued, describing how Max didn't fight back. Instead, he found a reason to forgive. She spoke about Daisy, Buddy, and the hundreds of animals who now had homes because of one dog's courage. The crowd listened in silence, many wiping away tears, their hearts moved by the power of kindness. After the speech, Emma revealed a new plaque on the shelter wall that read, "Max's Corner, where second chances begin." The plaque featured an image of Max with a quote underneath, "Kindness is the loudest voice of all." The shelter also launched a scholarship in Max's name to support young animal advocates like Emma. Music played, and dogs ran joyfully across the yard, their laughter and barking blending in perfect harmony. Emma watched Max play with the others, seeing the happiness in his every step and the pride in his gentle eyes. She knew that no matter where life took her, Max would always be her greatest teacher. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the shelter, Max trotted back to Emma's side. And with one final look toward the place that once held him captive, Max sat tall, no longer a victim, but a hero.